What's up guys, welcome back to Seize the Speed for another review, and today I have something very special. To the left side of me, this is a 2009 Mercedes-Benz AMG C63. Let's get into it. Now, if you've been watching and following the last few reviews I've done on this channel, you would find a theme of a bunch of sports sedans on there. And I don't know if that's a hint on what I'm looking to get on the channel very soon, or more of just what's dying out. A good old V8 under the hood, rear wheel drive, and 4 doors so you can have your friends or your family to enjoy a beast with you. And that would be exactly what this W204 C63 AMG is. So let's talk about a little bit of the cosmetic things you get with the AMG treatment compared to your run-of-the-mill C300 W204. And that would be pretty much the entire front clip. From the hood bulges that pay homage to the 300 SL, to this beautiful bumper with the side vents going in, and also your fenders that boast the 6.3 AMG badge. And in the rear end of the car, you get a lot less of a different look. The quarter panels, unfortunately, aren't like the E90s or the F80 M3s. They're not wider. But your rear bumper is entirely different with a pretty diffuser and quad pipes out the back. So coming around the back of the C63 AMG, as I mentioned, there's not a whole lot of differences body-wise to this thing. Mainly, you get this diffuser, you get your quad pipes with AMG stamped on them, and also you get your C63 AMG badging with this spoiler. And while we're at the back, let's take a good look at the trunk space. After all, it's a sedan, right? And, you know, just like any W204, it's not anything as big as your S-classes, of course, but you still get pretty decent room for your regular stuff like your luggage, and your rear seats fold down to give you extra usability back here. All right, so we're dealing with a C63 sedan after all, so let's see how the back seat space actually is inside the W204. So I have the driver's seating position kind of sort of to my height, and I have about 2 fingers of legroom, and that's because of these cutouts on the back of these seats. I have about 3.5 fingers of headroom. So it's usable, but if you're sitting behind the taller driver, your legroom is gonna be heavily compromised. This isn't a crazy big sedan after all, but you know, you have back seats, so you can definitely transport people in the back. And speaking of the 6.3 liter, or dare I say the 6.2 and some change, let's take a look at it. Open the Mercedes hood and put it up in the service position, and voila, there's the beautiful hand-built by AMG engine under the hood. And lo and behold, they don't make things like this anymore. This type of engine is absolutely gone from the history. If you may or may not be familiar, the new C63 comes with a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. Let that sink in. Comes with a 4-cylinder from this 6.3 liter humongous torque monster. So this is the M156 engine, and in this car from the factory it made about 451 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque. However, this particular example has been tuned by Eurocharged. It has a stage 2 tune to make 550 wheel horsepower. The M156, it was an anomaly of its own because the engine before this, the M113, came supercharged in a lot of cars. Not in the C55, of course, but the interesting thing is Mercedes went from having boosted cars to a big displacement NA, which would be the M156. So the M156 was not without its troubles, like any Mercedes or any German car. All these cars have an Achilles heel, and the one for the M156, unfortunately, is the head bolts. Now this was remedied in the later model cars. I believe it's 2011 or 12 and up. Don't quote me on that, there's a service bulletin on it. But it's the design of the head bolts that caused them to corrode and have different issues, pretty much lose their tension or torque. So you would develop a head gasket leak, and the symptoms are pretty much, you see a low coolant light, you don't know where your coolant went, it's not leaking, well, it's ending up in the engine. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of this W204 Mercedes C63 AMG. And here's your typical Mercedes key that honestly was the same for many years. Gonna hop in, and we're greeted by a beautiful Mercedes steering wheel. Honestly, that's probably my favorite part of this interior. Good paddles. The rest of the interior of the W204, especially the pre-facelift, it's honestly not a whole lot to write home about. It's, you know, it is what it is. You have your screen that pops out of the dash when you turn on the car. Let's go ahead and do that, wake up the beast. Wow. And honestly, Mercedes with their infotainment, they weren't doing a whole lot of innovative things. Even up to the W205, earlier cars have a screen almost pretty similar to this thing. You have your little adjustment wheel 3-button situation here. You can see all the menus. You have your navigation, audio. You can connect your phone, but this thing does not have Bluetooth. With these cars, you can get a Bluetooth module and connect it over here to the iPod thing, and you can activate Bluetooth, so it's not too bad. Other than that, here's your center stack, which kind of dates the car. You have a actual dial screen pad, whatever you want to call it. I haven't seen one of these in a while, so I don't know what to call it. You have your heated seats, driver and passenger, and everyone's favorite, you have your rear shade. Moment of truth, does it work? And no, it doesn't work. Pretty simple climate control in the W204, nothing too fancy, gets the job done. It's a dual zone and it has cold AC, thank God, because it is 110 degrees right now. Up here we have another cheap element of the W204. I mean, honestly, this feels like something out of a Ford of the era or something. You got a pretty nice sized sunroof though. It's pretty good, opens up a lot of light in the interior and allows you to see these beautiful AMG bucket seats. They actually look very nice. Over here on the door, you have some wood trim. You have your seat adjustments like every Mercedes. We are used to seeing that. Memories. You have your window switches. Nothing too fancy. Everything is just practical, ready to use. You know, could be a little bit more luxurious. W205 definitely has it on that. You have your light switches right there, and let's get to the gauges. The gauges actually look pretty attractive. You have your AMG imprinted down there and 6.3 V8, which is pretty sweet, honestly. This thing sounds nasty, as you guys saw a little bit ago. And as I mentioned, this steering wheel is one of my favorite things in this interior. Paddles feel really nice to touch. You have your flat bottom, not a whole lot to distract you from driving this thing. This car is equipped with a 7-speed automatic, and this particular year they came with a torque converter, so it's a typical Tiptronic, not a whole lot I guess different than the rest of the Mercedes lineup. Back in the day, they didn't really have fast shifting transmissions in these cars, so we'll get into that when we actually drive it. And speaking of that, I think that's everything I have for this interior. So without further ado, let's buckle up and take this thing for a spin. Let's go. All right, driving the C63 AMG, and this thing is angry. Sorry about the camera wobble. We broke another camera mount, so let's see how this feels. So driving this thing around in comfort mode, automatic, nothing crazy. Aside the sound, because this thing is catless, everything else feels normal. Everything else feels like a Mercedes. This thing also has poly bushings for the engine, so you do feel a little bit of vibrations. As far as this particular C63 goes, this one has a stage 2 Eurocharged tune on it, meaning that it makes about 100 horsepower more than the car originally came with. There is also a transmission tune you can do for the 7-speed that I complain about so much, which would tighten up the shifts and actually allow you to have a more pleasant experience driving this thing. It'll still not be quite as good as the wet clutch newer systems, but still, it'll be a lot more responsive than it is right now. Enough of that. Let's put this thing in manual mode and see how this behaves. We have 7 gears. We are currently in 5th, and even in 5th, this thing is angry, man. That's a downshift. I'm going to tell you when I hit the pedal. You tell me how much of a delay this is. Now, I mean, it's not too bad. It definitely, for back in 2008, I've seen worse. And under load, this thing shifts pretty good. It's not nearly as bad as you would think it is. Hit it. Downshift. Woo! Yeah, under load, this thing, the upshifts are a lot better. And it crackles like crazy. Which just makes me happy. This thing is an animal under load. The transmission doesn't mess around. When you're actually up there in the RPM, you know, past 4,000 or 5,000, it'll shift just fine. Definitely not DCT fast, PDK fast, but definitely not a slouch. It's nowhere near, I'd say, as bad as the old 5-speed boxes that were in the C55s and things like that. The sound of this thing is just crazy. Shakes everything. I just want to say, massive shout out to my buddy Akram, Eurocharged Dallas. This thing is a joy to drive. I am so happy I got the opportunity to take this W204 C63 out for a spin. Just one more. This thing's an animal. So as I mentioned, this thing has a Stage 2 Eurocharged tune on it. It wakes up the car for sure. It makes the car a different animal. If you're interested, if you're in Florida, if you're over here in Texas and Dallas, hit up Eurocharged. Get your car done. Get yourself one of these tunes, because these cars could definitely have a little bit more power squeezed out of them. And even if you need any type of maintenance done, tunes, dyno, anything, hit up Eurocharged. They'll get you right. Alright guys, and that is all I have for this W204 Mercedes C63 AMG with the 6.3 liter V8 under the hood. This thing's an animal. Absolute savage compared to something like an E90 M3. Let me know your opinions on this car. Let me know if you own one of these, if you own an M3, if you own anything that compares to this. If you're looking to buy one, what else are you comparing it to? I might be looking to buy one, or A90, who knows? But as far as this video goes, this one is over. So thank you so much for watching. Shout out to Eurocharged for letting me drive this thing. Have a great day. Peace out, and I'm out.